going on, everybody? Cheers. It's been a while since I've done a live. My buddy Tim. Oh, God, that just exploded everywhere. Happy Sunday. Gonna wait for the man himself to join. Wait for some more people to join so we can have this wonderful conversation tonight. So, just want to catch up. It's been a little while. Howdy. What's going on? Hold on a second. I'm having trouble hearing your voice. Do you have your microphone or something?
Can you hear me?
You're very, very, very faint.
Let me try something. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay, take your time. Having a little technical difficulties, so bear with us just a moment. Trying to figure out what's going on with him. I'm using my old phone tonight, so I don't look completely crazy. That way you don't see me, because obviously my actual phone is still very, very, very messed up. You can see right there, that's where the filming light fell right on my camera and absolutely obliterated my front screen. So I'm using my old one tonight. Luckily, I still have it. Yeah. Can you hear me, guys?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Good. Just had to get the, I've been having mic problems with my phone for whatever reason, so an external mic's the only thing that I can do.
Interesting. No worries. I wasn't telling everybody, I don't know if you were in the room or not, but I'm using my old Galaxy S8 tonight because I haven't gotten my screen repaired yet on my current phone. So luckily I still have it and I can still do this.
Yay. Yeah, I was about to say, I was wondering what the whole live experience was going to be like with your, whole camera mishap thing.
Well, I'm still in the process of getting it replaced. If you can see that white spot right there, that is where the light fell. And that's literally right on top of where the camera is located. So, yeah, it sucks really, really bad. And it's a $300 repair. So that sucks even more. Because the problem is with the newer style phones is that the actual LED panel is actually attached to the glass. Right. And therefore, when you replace the glass, you have to replace the panel, even though your panel's not bad. So, what are you going to do?
Right, exactly. I think we've all been there at some point, been there, done that. But that's always one of my worst fears is I'm like, I don't care if my screen cracks, just for the love of God, do not crack my camera on the back because I've got to shoot my pictures in the morning.
Yeah, knock on wood, that's been fine. I bought a I have like a $60 OtterBox on it, but obviously I was just literally holding it like this, and one of the lights above me just fell off and just took a nosedive right on top of my screen. Now, funny thing is, it actually would have broken my glass bowl sink if my phone hadn't absorbed it. Right. But it would have cost a lot less to replace my sink than it would have to replace my phone screen. So I don't know. People have been like, "Oh, I'm glad it's my phone." In my case, I would have rather replace the glass sink.
I mean, that's how these things happen, man. That's how they happen, and it's weird because that always happens to me. That's why I actually don't have a case on my phone anymore. It's because every time I crack anything on my phone, it's a screen. It's because it hits a rock in just the right place on the front, but the back, of course, I'm not usually too worried about. So it's like whatever. Yeah.
Well, we have a good audience here now, so let's catch up a little bit. It's been a little while. I've been busy. You've been busy. Let's talk about that podcast. What kind of sparked it? What made you want to go with it? How are things going with it?
Oh, man. Things are going great with the podcast. I really enjoy it. Actually, out of all the things that I do, whether it's photos, whether it's video, any of the content that I post, the podcast is by far the easiest thing to do. Anchor does all the work for me for the most part. So literally, if any of you guys have the knack for it, and if any of you guys really want to dive into podcasting more, I think it'd be good to have more of a presence for us on there. So anybody can pick up Anchor. Anybody can record episodes and then enter them into segments, add music. It comes with a pre-selection of music you can add on there, certain tracks and stuff. You can add your own as well. Yeah. But for me, it's an easy platform. I was lucky, good genetics and all that fun stuff. I've got a decent voice, and so I've always kind of leaned more towards Oh, but you know, I mean, it's one of those things. You use your talents that you've got, and podcasting just has always seemed a very natural movement for me. It's always something I've wanted to do, and wet shaving has given me an opportunity to pursue that a little bit more.
Definitely. Real quick, I'm going to cut you off. Mayday said my top two shelves are looking a little bare. I've been shooting a lot of stuff for, excuse me, I've been shooting a lot for Strikehold Shave lately, so it's actually all in my other room right now in a box because I've been filming. So I hurried up and kind of filled in everything else, put some of my West Coast shaving stuff up here. But yes, good observation, good observation. So going back to your podcast, when did you first start seeing an uptick in listeners? Because obviously you can see statistics, I would assume, right?
Yes. And that's the cool thing with Anchor. You can see all your statistics. You can see exactly which platforms it's distributing to. And I think the real uptick was once it was fully distributed. So when you first start, Anchor doesn't immediately send it to all of these platforms. It will automatically on its own. It just takes a while for them to get approved on iTunes, on Spotify, on all of these, you know, podcasting streamers. And it wasn't until really it popped up on Spotify, because ironically when I joined, it wasn't like a week or two after that Spotify actually bought out Anchor.
Okay.
And then when it popped up on iTunes, that was kind of the, whoa, this is crazy. I've always wanted to post, you know, my content on these platforms, but there's no easy way to do it. All the pre-approvals you have to go through with each of these, but Anchor does it for you. And I started seeing people that were like, oh, is it available on this platform? Oh, is it available on this? Oh, yeah, you guys can listen to it on this platform, because Anchor pretty much distributes that to everybody. So I started seeing people really come in during my PAA podcast. So it wasn't my first like one or two podcasts. I think it was like the third one that I really started seeing people, you know, wanting to listen, providing me feedback, all that fun stuff.
So have you noticed a steady uptick since you've been posting regularly on the podcast?
Yeah. And one of the things that's really helped with that is posting on the, you know, wet shaving Facebook groups, and mentioning it here regularly on the Instagram page, because it's the majority of my follower base is here on the gram. But yeah, I mean, the more content that I release and the more I hone in the kind of content that I want to do, the more I'm seeing people just really getting invested, saying, oh, I'm listening to it while I'm at work, or I'm listening to it, you know, while I'm just chilling at home, or while I'm exercising at the gym, all that fun stuff. I mean, it's cool to hear people listening to it at different points and in different ways. But yeah, I continuously see, you know, a few more trickle in. You know, first off, it was like, you know, 30 people total listened in on this one. And then you start seeing that go up to 60, then 80, then 100, then 120, and then more and more. And you're like, whoa, that's crazy. So it's been a good one. I've been really enjoying it.
Hey, real quick, root down, my buddy Larry. He's a good buddy of mine that I met on the PSN on PlayStation. We play Rocket League together. Woohoo. But he's about my age, a little older.
Yeah.
He approached me about a couple months ago, was asking about the whole wet shaving thing. He follows me here. He's watching tonight. And I sent him a set. I sent him one of my Colonel Conk razors. I sent him a Holy Black brush. And I sent him the Wet Shaving Products Olympus set. And he said ever since he has switched, he has had zero razor burn, and he absolutely loves the scent. His wife loves the scent. So I think we've got another one in the works, and I'm happy. I'm glad he's here.
That's
glad
awesome.
He's watching. I just wanted to shout him out real quick. Thirsty Badger says, have you noticed the podcast increasing followers and interactions on your other social platforms?
I have. So I've noticed more engagement on Instagram. People are regularly asking me on my Facebook page, on, you know, people commenting on YouTube. Oh man, I listen to your podcast all the time. I love your YouTube videos. Or they're messaging me direct on Instagram, which is probably the best way to reach me, saying, you know, when are you going to be releasing the next podcast? What are you going to be doing? Here's some ideas, things I'd like you to talk about. So that's been really fun to see that added engagement on my other platforms, especially Instagram. I've seen a few people trickle in saying, I found you on your podcast and I heard you mention that you're on here, so went ahead and followed you on here. So, and that's really, I'd say Instagram's my main thing, you know, but All these other platforms, I like that people are getting redirected here and I can communicate with them, on a regular basis, or that I have an extended outreach because I'm active on these other platforms like YouTube and podcasting and all that stuff. I mean, it's just, again, it's to help added exposure, and I think it's working.
Sure.
I think it's working.
So what do you think the benefit of your podcast is bringing to the community? Because let's face it, as far as I know, there's not a whole lot nowadays. I think back in the day there was quite a bit. I think Doug had the round table, and there was a couple other things like that. But as far as I know, there's not really many podcasts out there. So what made you want to capitalize on that?
That was part of the reason. There's just not a lot currently out there. Really, the only podcast that I know of that's actively going on is Sharpologist. I know there was the roundtable, like you had mentioned, that was going on at a point in time before, and I always thought that would be a natural thing that maybe I could take part of if it ever happens again. That'd be fun.
That would be.
But there's just a huge void in the market, and honestly, Reyes over at Reyes Restores and I were talking about podcasting and about all these different platforms, and he's really been the big one to push. He's like, man, you need to get on this. There's no one out there in that market. You need to take advantage of it. You need to offer this kind of content. And I'm still wanting to, I think the next evolution of the podcast is to start bringing on guest speakers and having episodes where we're talking back and forth about stuff like you and I are doing right now on Instagram Live. I just need to figure out all the nuances to that. I don't want to waste anybody's time by not knowing what I'm doing on bringing people in there and then taking that episode and adding the music and doing all the editing that I do on there, which is not too much, but just to make sure it's a finished product. I don't want to screw around. I want to know what I'm doing. And so I still have plans on bringing a couple people that mentioned they are really interested on being on the podcast. And I think people would like that added content.
TJ, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. TJ Shaves, good to see you. We have Phil Wetshaves here. So question for you. Have you had any blowback on your podcast?
Not really. The only blowback I've gotten is, why haven't you why haven't you posted an episode in a while? And I'm kind of just like, I'm busy. I try to post when I can, and I try to do it consistently because, again, I feel like those are the people that I take the most seriously, are people that are very consistent on when they post content. If people start going weeks and months without doing anything with their platforms, I just kind of lose interest and kind of go away for a little bit. So to keep that engagement, I try to post on a regular basis, and now that I'm pretty much doing that on the weekends, that's helped. Usually I'll alternate between videos and podcast, but generally speaking, that's the only pushback I've gotten. People aren't upset about the content that I address. As a matter of fact, that kind of semi-controversial podcast that I posted before about just what I expect from the shaving community, what I expect us to do to usher people into it, and to be sitting here with people that have a lot of knowledge, people that have a lot of capability to really enrapture people into what we're doing. And
For a minute. Can anybody else see me?
Can
anybody else see Tim?
Can you see me?
Now I see it. Now you're moving.
Yeah, it randomly popped in and said poor connection. I was like, Dad, no.
See, my issue is my old phone here. I can't switch to the network because I don't have a network. I don't have a SIM card or anything on here, so I have to stay on Wi-Fi.
Right. No, but I mean, that, I guess, what was I saying before we bleeped out? I was like, oh God, no, not the connection.
Mr. Cologne, Glenn is here. Good to see you, buddy. Steve Shaves,
love you,
Badger.
Man.
You were just talking about how you were trying to improve your podcast and, and the feedback you were getting and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
I do have a couple things I want to mention. One thing that I personally really like is I like your wet shaving news that you have at the beginning. But the past two podcasts, your overall main volume has been too quiet.
Yes, and it's driving me nuts. I think it's partially due to the mic. This mic is by far a million times better than my Samsung Meteor. My Samsung Meteor, the biggest problem with that one, and again, it's all about getting used to the tools that you're using to post this content. But the Samsung Meteor was just automatic. The volume would be really good. but there's no actual way to adjust the volume on the Samsung Meteor. It's the same way with the Yeti Nano. There's no way to adjust the level of volume that you have while you're doing your recordings. It's just up into the recording software. But I do think that this has some sort of detection technology that detects like lulls, so it kind of balances that out and makes it softer. For whatever reason, with just Anchor, it doesn't have that problem with anything else. It picks up my videos and all that other stuff, which I use it for everything really well. But for the podcast, I have to be right on top of pretty much eating the mic in order to get the volume that I need. And usually with the podcast, I sit here in the same setting. See now with all the lights off except for the backlights. It's nice, it's chill, it's relaxed. And I lean back and I talk, and I think that's why the podcast is not getting the really loud quality. It's really good quality audio. It's just not very loud. So that's been kind of the thing I've been working on.
It's not a big deal, but this is something I wanted to mention. I don't know if you were aware of people had said.
Dare you? Just kidding.
God forbid I want to make you better.
Right.
But my biggest issue, like I said, is I usually use one AirPod, and I'm usually doing it at work because your voice is so soothing and it lets me kind of escape work while I'm working, especially the past couple weeks with my student housing turn. So it's been great, but I've noticed that the past couple episodes I keep clicking my volume. I'm like, oh shit, it's all the way up. Yeah. So I just want to make sure I mentioned it. That's all. Thirsty Badger said, when is my oud review with Mr. Cologne? That is coming up this coming week. I have been very busy with my actual day job, so that is coming soon this week. Yost, hold on. Man, people, the comments are flying. You're one of the few people. What the hell? I can't see this. Why isn't this working?
They're telling me it's freezing again on your. I don't know if it's freezing for both of us, but I saw Mayday ATC saying it was freezing again.
Well,
I can see you right now. I can kind of.
Okay, I can see you just fine.
Okay.
It says, hey, Yost, you're one of the few people I respect when it comes to wet shaving. I just want to say thank you for what you do. I appreciate that, Sneaker. I appreciate that, buddy.
He works hard on his content. I know you do. I mean, all the shots that you do, your OCD on how everything's framed. I mean, you take a lot of pride in your work. And I mean, that's honestly, guys, if you want to know why I did any of this stuff, it was because I noticed the first couple stories that Yost was posting about slowly panning into slow water running and these beautiful shots of his Georgetown pottery scuttle, which I bought because of those, by the way.
You did. I remember that.
I started reaching out to him. I'm like, oh, man, your content's so cool. What's up? And, we were both pretty new to the whole thing at that point, but it was cool seeing all that happen. And he's literally been the most dedicated person I know to framing everything just right, high-end quality. I literally copy off of some of the way that he does things because it makes me look better. So, whatever.
Hey, you know what? I take it as a compliment. I appreciate that. And I don't care if people copy the style or I have people all the time ask me for questions or they ask me for help or what's my setup or, what am I doing? We're all in this together. I'm not trying to get one up on anybody, but I felt, at least on Instagram, there was a market. There was something that was missing.
Yes.
And I like to buy with my eyes. I like to eat with my eyes. And I just wanted to bring something to at least Instagram that was missing at the time, and I just happened to get really good at it.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
And that's the thing. I mean, when we started doing lives, nobody else was doing live shaves or, video content. And then you started the interviews, and, it all went from there. Now everybody's trying to get in on that, and with varying degrees of success. When Instagram works, it's always a plus too. But in general, we've, especially you've helped propel where wet shaving is within the community. We're uniting various people together to kind of, form these larger communities like you and Mr. Cologne. You guys partnering up with these big niche and major perfuming houses coming together with wet shaving. We've seen these combinations and these collabs before with Zoologist and Chiseled Face, and we've seen Chatillon Lou with Declaration Grooming, and of course now we're seeing it with Ariana Evans and Alexandria Fragrances. But I know what your big movement has been, working with Mr. Cologne, has been trying to, get wet shaving more intertwined with the big fragrance world, which, it's a huge thing. Once you see how stuff like this performs, like Alexandria Fragrance's new Zion shave soap. I mean, you can tell just with the scent ingredients in this thing, how it smells, that this is from a perfuming house and that this had a quality touch on the base, which was Ariana Evans.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see these things happening. And for you to be promoting that and championing that, I think is a really good thing.
I appreciate that, Tim. That's funny. You bring that up about, bringing the scents and, bringing the perfume houses and the custom fragrances and stuff. And I mention this to almost everybody that I interview live, and I never get a direct answer, nor do I expect anybody to give me a direct answer. But when does shave soap become good enough? And when do you have to start focusing on something else?
Yeah.
And also, as far as when do the consumer think it's good enough and then start looking for other reasons to buy it? Because, granted, and it's not to knock anybody, but we have all these causes, donations, whether it's for a good cause or it's donating to a cancer society like Strike Gold Shave is doing, or like Teton is done, or Murphy and McNeil do all the time. But what is going to continue selling shave soap besides a donation to a good charity or to a good cause or a pretty label? What's going to continue making people want to buy stuff?
Right, and I think that's the thing that I really like about this, about kind of championing that next step of really trying to integrate with these perfuming houses, is that you want to see added steps to the evolution of wet shaving, to what we're doing with software. And you're talking about guys in fragrance that spend 200, 300 and plus on a single fragrance, on 100 milliliters, 200 milliliter bottle of juice. And these guys, I feel like, would be a natural fit into wet shaving. A lot of the guys that are spending that much on hardware and even some limited edition soaps like THP's limited edition stuff are a natural transition for fragrances. And again, when you mention the base, I mean, and I was discussing this with somebody the other day. Again, I don't want to call him out because I don't know if he wants me to talk to anybody about it or not. We were talking, and it's one of those things where you're like, okay, how much does a soap really need to do for you? How much can it evolve performance-wise? And you start getting into little minor things when it comes to how a base performs. Is it slightly more slick? Does it have slightly more glide? Do we have additional fragrance performance, which is why I'm liking these partnerships with the perfuming houses. We're getting what I've been seeking, because I feel like, generalistically speaking, I can find there are tons of them on the market as far as shaving soaps. And there are those that I know that are really good performers base-wise. They're very consistent, thick, dense, pillowy lather, gets me the results that I want, gives me the results that I'm looking for in the overall shave and how my face looks, but the scent just isn't there for a lot of them. And I feel like the more we trend towards getting them involved on what we're doing, the less we're going to be seeing this divide between guys that are nervous to get into fragrances because they see it as maybe more of a feminine thing with, terms like parfum or eau de parfums or eau de toilettes or any of that stuff. Vice versa with guys that are in fragrances that are really concerned with diving into wet shaving because they see it as there's only Old Spice, Aqua Velva, and Brute, and that's it. They don't want to use their dad's aftershave. They want to smell like a unique guy, and so they're using these fragrances. If they knew that there were matching aftershaves to their favorite fragrances, I think a lot of them would flip. And hopefully more collabs like this will get that going. But even then, today I was posting in a couple of really big fragrance groups about my scent of the night last night. I did a shave of the night and a scent of the night post, the same ones that I've been posting to the Facebook groups. And barely anyone said anything. And I'm new in those groups, but I'm like, is nobody here? Like, does nobody see the similarities between these scent profiles to see why this would be an awesome thing? But it'll come. And
some people are stuck in their ways, but see, that's how I kind of figured it out too. Is I had a lot of people say I started as a wet shaver, but it was kind of a gateway drug into fragrances, and I kind of found it the opposite way. I've always been fascinated by fragrances, but could never afford the $200-300, for the really premium stuff. And I think wet shaving was an easy way to go into it. Not only were you getting a good shave and overall skin health, but you are also experiencing these fragrances that you may not be able to afford if you're just going out and buying the manufacturer's, brand name fragrance.
Yeah.
But I think we're at a point now, and unless something makes me look 10 years younger, I think we're literally at a point now, and you've mentioned this several times, we're in the golden age of wet shaving. And,
Stole
I
that from
think
Eric, by the way. Sorry. Keep going.
well, I know you stole it from somebody,
Yeah.
but I'm stealing it from you. But you said we're in the golden age of wet shaving, and I said anything that's sitting behind me or it's in my cabinet down below because I don't have in the room is going to get the job done, and it's going to do it better than anything that you can buy in Target or Walmart or Kmart or whatever you have. But to me now, I think I've kind of gotten past of what the base can do, and now it's about the scent experience and the feeling I get from it.
Yeah. And I mean, I completely agree with you. And I think that's the main thing that I think a lot of us have lost sight of is that, I came from using gels, in like an aerosol type can, and I used Barbasol for years because it was the cheapest thing. I could go to the Dollar General store and get some, and I actually kind of like the scent of Barbasol. But then I got into wet shaving. I realized there's just so much more you can do for your face to make yourself feel better, more comfortable. And I was just, the more I start diving into fragrances, the more that I've been in this hobby for a while, and I've got no shortage of soaps, brushes, razors, anything like that. I've tested a little bit of just about everything. And you start to realize, I mean, there are differences between soap bases, but I think every artisan puts forward a truly remarkable effort. Anything they're typically miles away better than anything that you're going to be getting from Target, Walmart, Walgreens, anything like that in an aerosol can, typically speaking. And we're seeing innovations. Like Ariana Evans just came out with a shave cream container that he's been working on, I think, for 8 months is what he stated. And I've watched videos of him building lather. We're seeing new techniques and new ways of providing product to the consumer. But in the end, it's all going to be better than anything that you're going to buy from the store, and you can still get it cheap, and you can still get it to your door quick because WCS and Maggard send it to you quickly. Shave Nation sends it to you like next day. I mean, so I think a lot of it, and I know Jared had mentioned just a second ago, that one of the big goals, I think, is to try to get these into the larger market, starting to see like these, if I saw Ariana Evans in a Target shelf, I would flip. I'd lose it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why.
Could you imagine seeing an artisan soap with a barcode on it?
Would be crazy. And again, there's that fear that they lose what makes them great because of that. But if you partner up with these larger businesses, and I know a lot of people, I think that's been part of what people have been worried about with fine accoutrements is their aftershave splashes went up tremendously. Their soaps have gone up. Generally speaking, they feel more corporate than artisan now, so they've kind of lost some of that personal touch. And I think you got to be careful about the transition. But I think that is, like Jared had stated, kind of the next step is try to make it more available for the masses instead of just the niche community, which wet shaving community, we're growing, we're getting bigger, but we're still small in the big scheme of things. I mean, you look at the most popular wet shaving influencers and you look at the most popular fragrance influencers, we're talking difference of, 900,000 followers. I mean, it's crazy the huge divide between the two.
There's a big gap. There's a big gap. And I think, wouldn't you think Sterling is on their way to being almost mainstream between getting their brick and mortar store, offering body wash, stuff. I think if anyone's going to make it mainstream, they're right now at the cusp of doing that.
Well,
I don't know if that's their intention, but I think they've got the product, they've got the price point, they've got the performance. They have nothing to lose. I don't know if that's what they're going for, but I think they could pull it off. If anybody's going to pull it off, they're going to do it.
Well, and I think that's the thing. Sterling does so many things right. That's why everybody, I have yet to hear anybody that say that Sterling soap is not a good product or a good company, because it's just not true. What they are doing over there is tremendous. The amount of product they're offering, they offer, lotions, beard oil, beard balms. They offer aftershaves, EDTs, hardware, brushes, everything Yeah, they are a one-stop shop, because if you like one of their fragrances, you can get it in everything. You can layer on those fragrances to your heart's delight. And that's what I wanted when I first got into the hobby. I wanted to find places that offered that, where I could have a complete experience from beginning to end. And Sterling is one of the only ones out there that do that. And they do that without losing their identity as an artist
Yeah.
and as a contributing member to the community. They're still very mom and pop shop, brick and mortar store. They have a new location that they keep inviting me to. I need to find a time on the weekend to go.
Same, man.
Yeah, I'm excited because Rod and I talk all the time. He's like, dude, if you're down here, even if we're closed on Sunday, you let me know and I'll open my doors and we can have a little talk. We can go grab some dinner. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. I love you, man. You're so cool. But Sterling is just so cool about that. They're just so down home. They don't let it get to their heads or anything about what they do or who they are. And their price point is unbeatable. Virtually nobody comes close to the amount of products that they offer at the price they offer with the performance that you get. It's why it's so easy for me to pick up multiples of their products, because I'm like, at the end scheme of things, I'm not spending that much money because of the savings I'm getting back from, not spending it here or there or whatever,
Oh yeah, for dollar per performance, nothing can beat it on the market as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yes, Dave Kelly, they offer a body wash now.
And I mean, there's always going to be those that I'm going to recommend to somebody, Sterling's usually the first one that is a no-brainer I can recommend for beginners or people that are experienced, but I can still recommend others if they want additional performance or if they want added features, if they want a longer lasting fragrance. I can say Zingari Man, fragrances, unique, specific, very different DNA, but very strong fragrances. I like them a lot. The aftershave balms are really good there, and they do offer beard oils and beard balms, which I like. Anything outside of just soap and aftershave, I like to see. Solid colognes, I really like. That's
you
wet shaving,
that,
right? WSP does that. WSP is very similar. Their price point's higher than Sterling, but they offer, custom-made EDPs, so not just EDTs, stronger fragrances, tallow and vegan, and all, beard elixirs, lotions, all this stuff. So there's a lot of them out there that I can recommend for various reasons, but Sterling is always the very first one that I ever mention to anybody. It's a nice gateway, but it's also a nice thing that if you don't want to go anywhere else, that's fine too, because Sterling's just an easy, no-brainer recommendation.
Sure. John said, have you guys used Sterling Haverford? I personally have not.
I have not. I saw that they brought that back, and I have not used Haverford. I've got a lot of Sterling products. I don't know if you can. Now you can't see. It's really off camera over here. But I've got a lot of Sterling products, including their EDTs and whatnot, and their beard oils and stuff. But I don't have Haverford. There's a lot of fragrances that I keep meaning to try that I haven't even touched. But again, it's one of those that I'm like, I could throw up a few bucks, for several products, and it's not going to break the bank. So I know I love Parks and Rec.
As soon as my bar soap runs out, I'm probably going to start purchasing the Sterling body wash, just because it's a good amount. I forget the exact price point, but it's very comparable to dollar per ounce for like an Old Spice body wash or anything like that. And I don't know how many different scents they have, but they do have quite a bit. So it's definitely something I've been keeping my eye on. Now, you had mentioned in your last podcast, and I never thought of this, is that you said, I forget what company it was, but that they're calling it cologne when it actually is an EDP because men are freaked out about the EDP or the EDT or the perfume or whatever it is. I never once gave that a thought. I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I can admit, when I first got into wet shaving or fragrances or anything, years ago, one of the things that prevented me from buying a lot of product is if I would get really confused. If I saw Eau de Toilette, I didn't know what that meant. Especially if I saw Eau de Parfum, I would think perfume, and I would think that's a lady's thing, right? Perfume is a girl's thing. So I would avoid those products, and Eau de Toilette or a cologne, I'd see those interchanged all the time. So I would just be like, okay, cologne. I think that's a guy thing. Girls don't wear colognes. So I'd pick them up. But when I talked to Duke Cannon about it, it was just weird because the box itself, when I went to Target, they've very recently started offering EDP fragrances to spray. They mainly offered the solid colognes before, but now they actually offer spray-on fragrances. And the box on the front has cologne in big bold letters, and then you flip it around, and on the back, under type, it says EDP, Eau de Parfum. And I was like, which one is it here? Because they're two different things. Cologne is not an EDP, and EDP is not a cologne. But they were like, yes, we did that because essentially we don't want to, scare anybody off from purchasing this product. We want them to know this is a masculine product. They're very good about their advertising and making sure their products are for the working man, very masculine stuff. But that doesn't stop someone from seeing Duke Cannon, Eau de Parfum, and saying, is that perfume as in for a lady? Not noticing that perfume and parfum are two different things. And anyway.
Sure. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's not a Bud Light. No, it is not a Bud Light this time. I am doing a St. Louis craft beer, Four Hands Brewery, Full Life Lager. That's what I'm using tonight because everyone gives me shit about Bud Light because it's cheap. And it gives me just
Bud Light, man. I had a Bud Light last night. It's just, it might be pond water. I don't know, but I love it. It's cheap, it's easy to do, and it's easy to have several of them. So I'm like, it's whatever.
Easy drinking Bud Light. Yeah, shit. I think we all did growing up. It's a cheap shit. It wasn't Pabst Blue Ribbon. It wasn't Miller Lite. It wasn't Coors Light. But, I'm from St. Louis. I've taken a tour, whatever. But it's good stuff. Yes, I'm getting fancy, John. But I like to support my local companies. Anyway, Tim, I don't really have anything else. I just wanted to catch up with you. It's been a while. You've been busy with the podcast. I wanted to touch base with you. So I wanted to roll out the red carpet for you. What can people expect from you coming up in the next month or so?
Well, I think the next biggest thing that I'm planning on doing is trying to get people roped in to do interviews on the podcast. I've been talking to several people for a while. I think that's just a natural progression of where the podcast is headed to get people invited in so we can have these conversations like you and I have. But you don't have to worry about being tuned in or have your phone up. You can literally just plug it in while you're on your way to work and listen to two guys chatting about shaving, fragrances, general grooming habits. I mean, it's just fun to know what you can do differently throughout your day, and I think that's just a natural progression. But also with wet shaving, one of the natural progressions that we've been alluding to this whole time is fragrances. Going from wet shaving and also introducing fragrances into your lineup, and that's why I've been doing scent of the days, scent of the nights, because I want people to see that you can incorporate various products to get various effects. You can get more impact, more involvement from people around you really noticing the fragrance that you're wearing. Or like last night I paired almond cream, which is like a juicy cherry kind of fragrance. That's the only way I can describe almond, with YSL's La Nuit de l'Homme, which is a very spicy cardamom, smooth fragrance, and it just pairs really well. It's very sexy. And I think a lot of guys that do this, that take care of their face, that shave, that are, especially those that are really clean shaven or just want to keep everything nice and trim, are wanting to impress somebody. Whether that's, you're wanting to make an impression at work, or you're wanting to make an impression with your friends, family, or that special somebody. It's all about what can you do to take care of yourself to make yourself in the room present, people look in your direction. So. Yep.
I agree. Well, you might want to watch this live back because you got a lot of people wanting to be on your podcast. So,
right. Yeah, guys,
check it out. Check it out. Check out Tim. DM him, whatever you call it. Send him a message. He's looking for some people to collaborate with on his podcast, which is phenomenal. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. My only complaint is you're too quiet and you don't post enough.
How dare you? No,
but I think the whole point of tonight's live was I think we're at a point now that shave soap is damn good. We don't necessarily need a better performing scent or performing set. We need a scent that performs, lasts long, and speaks to us.
Exactly.
Cool. Thank you, Tim. This was great as usual. I love having you on. You're my buddy. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Let's do this again soon.
Of course. Thank you, buddy.
Bye, buddy. Have a good night. All righty. Thanks so much for watching, guys. It's been a pleasure. I love having Tim on. Make sure you're following him if you're not already. I will post this to my YouTube as well so you can catch the replay. Love you all.